If we don't have any questions from the floor, if you have a question you want me to answer later, go ahead and put it on your sticky tab, and we'll park it, and I'll send out a F, A, and Q. Okay? So next up is Ms. Royster with PowerSchool updates. And Ms. Royster is our PowerSchool guru from the State Department. So make sure you ask all those questions that you called me about.
Ask away. That's what I tell everybody. That is job security for me. So y'all ask all day, every day. Slides. All right, here we are. So I want to start off talking about how this homeless is all designated. So once you decide and have declared that a student is homeless, what's the next steps in making sure that you have them coded correctly inside of PowerSchool? So first, this is a QR code, so if you want the slide deck of the part that I'm going to be presenting, this will take you back because you can use this to have conversations in the district. I always want to start off as well to see how many of you in here actually received this email that actually went out this morning. To all the districts. So I do a weekly newsletter to everyone to let them know updates and changes as they are applied in real time to PowerSchool. I know that I over communicate, but I'd rather do that than y'all never know until you find out on the wayside, because I hated being that person. So y'all will always hear stuff from me, random stuff, legit stuff, like it was always be coming. So these are always published, and they're all based on the education directory groups that you've been entered in from your district. So make sure that if you have not been receiving those and you are the homeless liaison for your district, that you've been added into the education directory by your district so that you will receive those. These are the different roles that we tie them to as far as ed directory roles, but we do have the catch-all role called PowerSchool Contact that can be done at a system level or at a school level, so that if you have people that need to know the information, and y'all, I give updates on all 5 of the products that we support for PowerSchool, which is SIS, it is special programs, it is professional learning, it is unified insights. As things are changing, as new reports are administered out there, that's where we let districts know so that they can take action if it pertains to them in their roles. Also know that each week I offer office hours every Tuesday and Thursday unless I'm at some conference presenting and there's a conflict. So for example, as soon as I leave here, I'll be heading right back to the office for my 2:30 office hours. And you can feel free to jump in and ask any question as random as you want about PowerSchool, because the one thing I love about that group is every week we have 30 to 40 districts on there, and it's really become this little family environment where we all support all, where somebody might have a different way that they are using PowerSchool to do whatever they're needing to do, so we can put all of our heads together to figure out the best way to support you in the use of this. So anytime you have any questions, these are open office hours. I run them throughout the entire school year. They'll end May 30th because during the summer I'm at every conference known to man in the state of Alabama, so I can't really facilitate in them, but we'll start them back up in August. That way y'all have contact to me to jump in at any point in time. Also, we have, how many of you have this website bookmarked on your computer? Okay, I will tell you, I am in the process of building out a federal programs page dedicated to everything federal programs for you. So that is coming. You're going to see everything that I'm presenting today on homeless is going to be added in there. I'm talking about every part, piece, and section from EL to migrant to immigrant to homeless, you name it. It's all going to be posted on that page, so y'all can always go refer back to it. And especially if you have anybody who's brand new coming in and just doesn't even know what they don't know, this will be a good point of reference for you. So you can literally just Google Alabama PowerSchool, and it's like the top 3 results that show up in there. It's our little Google site that gets lots of traffic, about 400 views a day. It's heavily used across the state, and some other states have stumbled upon it. And so you'll see each one of the blocks. I've also got a list on the side that will tell you all the different links, and you can find out from anything you need to know of assessments, of grading, attendance, whatever it is you might be in charge of, and we do have the federal programs page that would be pertinent to you. We also have a YouTube channel, so if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, y'all, I'm adding videos all the time to it because people's wanting to know, how do I do this? And sometimes it's quicker to just put together a little 3-minute video walking you through it so you can refer back to it as many times as you want and see it in real time. So lots of videos on there. Some very beneficial ones, especially if your district has not transferred over to the new enhanced user interface. How many of your districts in here have gone ahead and flipped on what they call the new PowerSchool look? Okay, so for the rest of you who don't have hands raised, there's going to be a big change coming this summer where it flips to this new view that you have to kind of learn how to get to everything. So I'm having to redo every bit of my documentation I've created these past 2 years to make it with screenshots and recordings of the new view. So y'all are going to see lots of new videos coming out inside of this. Also, if you are social media butterflies like I am, we do have a Facebook and a Twitter page that you can follow because we always announce when we're having webinars, when we're having trainings. So if there's anything that you need to know to send out, tidbits in there, you can follow us on there and stay up to date as well. One of the things that we also purchase on behalf of all the districts, so the State Department pays for this, is PowerSchool PD Plus Campus. Raise your hand if you have a login to this. It is probably the most underused tool that is out there because I want you to think not just in your role, but think about your district for a second. How many of you are hiring new people who have to touch PowerSchool? Everybody, right? Registrar, counselor, teacher, somebody's got to do something with PowerSchool. How do you, as a district, train your new users on how to use PowerSchool? And you can't just say, I give them the computer and go, good luck. It's what happens. So this right here is an online tutorial system of everything PowerSchool, and you can put people on learning paths of, if you're a counselor or you're a nurse or you're a special programs person. It will walk you through at your own pace tutorials and trainings on literally how to use everything PowerSchool. It is great for a brand new person. They can go through the modules. At the end of the modules, they can print certificates, and if districts allow them, you can have your users upload those into professional learning and award them some PD credit for it. I did that when I was back in the district just to help. New teachers, put them in this so they learn how to use PowerTeacher Pro. So lots of good things. I just want you to know that that resource is there for everything PowerSchool related. So now let's get to the good stuff. How is homeless actually designated inside of PowerSchool? Well, with the changeover, I wanted to go ahead and give you a screenshot of where does your new homeless page land when you convert over to the new PowerSchool. So looking at this screenshot in the top right-hand corner, for those of you who are still on what I'm calling the old SIS, you have those blue links over on the left-hand side when you go to a student record, that laundry list of them. So when the enhanced user interface is turned on for your district, which your district can choose to turn that on for you in security groups at any point in time so that you can start to get used to it. However, once that release drops in, it's going to drop in May for all PowerSchool users, but we will not install it until after state reporting, so it'll be the end of June. When that big core update comes out in June and we apply it, this new look gets turned on for everybody. You don't have an option to turn it off. So a lot of districts went ahead and jumped in very early. I had some people that went ahead and ripped the Band-Aid last July as soon as it dropped and said, nope, we're going to go ahead and make the change. And there's lots of good features to it with quick search bars and things such as that. In fact, on the YouTube channel, I have a video where I kind of walk you through all of the changes inside of there. The new enhanced user interface does not change any functionality in PowerSchool, but it changes how you get to the pages inside of PowerSchool because it's now a linking system. So your federal programs page is now going to be listed under what's called the compliance page of a student record. So when you go into a student, for example, Mickey Mouse right here, where you're used to seeing that long laundry list and you had to go find the AL Custom or the Federal Programs page and had all those tabs, they're now linked under compliance and you will see all of those individual pages separated out where you had them on tabs under the old state province AL page. So you'll have an entire Federal Programs tab that looks exactly the same as it did in the old user interface. So here is a picture of our homeless area inside of PowerSchool. And what I want to do is just kind of go through each of those boxes so that you see exactly what information is required and when you make those check boxes inside of there. So let's start off with the homeless type. So we have not homeless, potential verified, and incorrectly verified. So remember that since we are now in the process of PowerSchool, if you have a student who was homeless last year, that when we perform the end-of-year rollover inside of PowerSchool, everybody that had a homeless record gets respun over in the new year and swapped from a verified status to a status of potential, because once a student is marked homeless at any point in time of the school year, they're homeless for the rest of the year. End of year rollover resets that to say, hey, districts, you need to take a look at these students and you need to re-verify, are they still in a homeless status or have they moved out of that homeless status? So everybody gets swapped to potential, and that's when you'll have to go in and start updating these for the next school year should you deem a student still homeless in that next academic year. So here are our definitions and how to make sure we appropriately code each student. Residency status. Now, this one is very important because it is one of the 3 fields that is required to be filled out for the student to appear in AIM. And we're going to kind of put the puzzle pieces together for you, because we'll get calls sometimes that says, hey, Stacy, I've marked a student as homeless in PowerSchool. I verified them, but they're not showing up in the AIM portal. Well, there's actually 3 pieces to that box that have to be filled in, and if even one of them is left out, they will not show up in AIM. So this is one. You have to mark which one of these residency statuses that student is in. Then we have the invalid reason, because what if by chance you marked a student homeless? So remember how we said once homeless, always homeless for the year? So let's say you accidentally picked the wrong kid or something like that, and you marked them homeless, or they came in, I don't know, incorrectly somehow. There is a way to in here mark that there was an invalid reason and why. It could have been, you know, we're humans. We make mistakes in data. It is highly probable that that's going to be made somewhere in the state throughout the year. So we need fail-safes to say if we did mark someone incorrectly, here's the student and why we did. So make sure that you mark those if you have any that fit that reason. Barriers to education. So if you have any student that you have deemed homeless that then does have one of these barriers, you would want to make sure that you mark any and all barriers that might exist. And just as an FYI, all of these kind of scroll menus, you do all know that you can multi-select these options, correct? How many of you here know how to multi-select, so if it fits more than one? Okay, you hit the control button. Hit control and hit as many of them as is needed that is in respect to that student. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, this may be a question more for LaDonna, but on the residency status, there is not an option for substandard housing, I believe. So if we have one of those that is a substandard.
Read that definition of unsheltered.
I can't read that.
Children and youth who are living in cars, parks, public spaces, abandoned houses, substandard housing,
Okay.
bus, train stations, or similar
So we
settings.
just code them as unsheltered.
It is.
Perfect. Thank
Yep.
you.
I get that question probably once a month, believe it or not. I have to remind myself where it's at. I'm like, I'm going to get it at the right spot. All right, served by funding. So if you have decided that this student does qualify for any of those funds, then you would mark which type of funding you are providing those services with, whether it's local, whether it's McKinney-Vento, whether it's state funds, or where it's Title I funds. Then you get into the actual services, and this was a change that was made this year where we took the services that were given to you in the drop-down and aligned them more to the services that you actually see inside of your EGAP application to hopefully make this easier on you on knowing what to mark in PowerSchool, because the first couple of years of PowerSchool, we got a lot of questions of, well, I applied an EGAP and I said it was this, but when we go over here, it said something different, so how do I know which one to mark? So we deprovision those old codes for the services and align them more with the same wording of what you see over inside of EGAP so that you could see a better alignment with those.
Stacy? Okay. I'm sorry. If you don't mind, could you please go back and repeat that? I know that's a lot to repeat, but online you went out and they weren't able to hear what you had to say.
How far back?
I'm sorry.
Do you know how far back I needed to go? Just on this?
Just on what you just covered.
So for the McKenty-Vento services, these services codes were updated this past summer to align more with the service definitions that you see when you apply for the funding in your actual EGAP applications. So you will notice if you look at the data code manual, and I've linked this binder in here because this is where you will see all of these definitions. Anytime we get new or updated codes, they are always updated in this state binder because they have to go through data governance committee and everything such as that. So we made the decision to more align these as a request by districts to align more with the mechanism and the wording that are over in the EGAP application, so that as you were putting that you were spending these services on, or money on services for students, it would align more and you wouldn't have this mismatch in wording to know which one actually you needed to choose. So this year, these are all new codes that you've been working with, and we sent that email out at the beginning of the year.
Stacy, I
Yes.
apologize. Can you go back to the barriers slide and go over that just very briefly one more time?
Yes. So these are barriers where if you have identified any of these barriers being possible reason, you would want to mark those inside of there. And I don't know, LaDonna, if you have any more clarification you want to give.
When you think about the barriers, you have to think about, when the child comes to you and you're having that conversation to identify their needs, that's basically what are the areas you're going to service those children in? Because that was a barrier to their education. So like Stacy said, you can do all of them. You can do some of them. But this helps us identify when it's time to, fund those particular needs. We can align those funds with whatever the service that was provided to the child.
And then it's kind of funny because I promise you, LaDonna and I did not talk about our slides, but I'm literally reiterating what she had on her slide for unaccompanied youth. Because we do get a lot of questions on making sure that we mark unaccompanied youth correctly. So in order for unaccompanied youth to show up in AIM, they, one, must meet the definition of homeless to receive funding. So in order to be shown as a homeless student inside of AIM, do you see those three circled areas? So I've got homeless type, I've got valid school year, and I've got the residency status. It takes all three of those to be correct and current for the student to pop up in AIM. Now, this has caused some problems with districts because when that end of year rollover happens, and I've got Mickey Mouse right here. So Mickey Mouse was verified homeless, let's say this school year. Okay, and he is, so I was going to have valid school year, is going to say 23-24. And the residency status, let's say, is doubled up. So when end of year rollover happens to Mickey Mouse, he is going to be swapped from verified to potential. But all that other information stays what it was as of the last school year because that's what's captured in that state snapshot. So when the 24-25 school year starts and I have reevaluated Mickey and I've determined that Mickey is still indeed homeless, then I've got to go in and I've got to set that homeless type back to verified and I have to update that school year. Because until Jermaine and his team see a valid school year of the current school year on the student, they're not going to pop up in AIM in the 24-25 tile for homeless because we're still seeing them as 23-24 from rollover. So when you do your task list for what you need to do at the beginning of each school year, you need to run the report on who all of your potentials are, see if any of them need to be re-verified, and if so, verify them and update that school year. You would also need to update the residency status if it has changed from last school year. If it's the same, it's going to stay there and you're good. But if it's moved from doubled up to something else, you would need to make that change at that time. So if you have decided that that student has met the definition of homeless, you have all that marked correctly, and they have met that other qualification of not being guarded by the parent, that is when you then click that unaccompanied youth checkbox. And it takes all 4 of those pieces on this page to be enabled for them to show as unaccompanied youth inside of AIM. So does that make sense to everyone? The 3 items to make sure they're marked as homeless in AIM, and the 4th to get them as an unaccompanied youth. Perfect. Now, This is the big thing, dates of importance, because there are two groups of people that end of year will affect in ways that can be really good or really bad. That is homeless and attendance personnel. Because everyone knows that at the end of the year in PowerSchool, we all have to do what's called this end of year process. This is the process that promotes, retains, graduates the kids, and moves us from one active year to the next active year in PowerSchool. Now, this end of year process always has to happen before that state snapshot. We had the memo that came out, I don't even remember how many years ago now, before I even came to the State Department, that instead of being date specific, went to the generic. Everybody always expect third Friday in October, third Friday in June. That's when our pools are always going to be. And for the tiles, typically those certifications ride along that date, except for homeless. Because you have to make sure that your data is correct before your district runs end of year. Because your snapshot for homeless is taken at the point in time your district hits that button to run end of year. So if you don't have your homeless information entered, which I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a minute, you should be entering that homeless data in real time on your kids. Because when you mark a student homeless, who in here knows what the first thing that happens to them in PowerSchool is? Free or reduced lunch. They hit the DC file. So if you are waiting to the end of the year to put your homeless in, you have denied that student a free lunch the entire year, and now that parent who probably doesn't have the means to pay it is racked up a huge debt in the cafeteria. Do it in real time so they get on that DC file and can receive those services that they qualify for. Okay? But if you do wait to the end of the year, and we had some districts that did this year one and didn't realize they had to have all homeless in before that end of year. When it end of year hits and it resets everybody to potential, if you try to go in after the end of year process before that third Friday in June and make your corrections, the state's not going to pick them up. Because what Jermaine's going to talk about in a little while with him and his team, they read exactly what is captured at that end of year process snapshot for homeless. So the third Friday in June this year falls on Friday, June 21st. That's D-Day for all federal snapshots. Okay, that 9-month report that we talk about. Now, that might not be your certification date, so you'll have to make sure that you ride along with those certification dates. But that is that 9-month report snapshot inside of AIM from the official state collections. Every year, the Tuesday to Tuesday before that is when districts have to run that end of year rollover process. We have a week window that we all have to do it together because everybody kind of has the pause on registrations, enrollments, and so forth for us to get everybody flipped over before we start moving kids across the state. I tell districts, the earlier you do this process, the more time you have for error checking for all the other stuff except for homeless. Because you're done once you do end of year. There is no corrections you can make to a student that will then populate in that homeless tile. So I go ahead and tell everybody here, y'all just go ahead and set yourself the date of June 10th. Make sure that everything is correct, because it doesn't matter if you have certified or not. What it is of that day is what it is. Now, if you certified ahead of that date, then it's going to be whatever it is you certified, if it's open at that point in time. I don't know when the windows are it's going to be open. I'm sure they'll talk about that later. But if it's after that, doesn't matter what changes you make, that's what the data is going to be. So your question is, well, Stacy, how do I check every kid in the whole district to make sure I have them correct for them to show up in AIM? One, you need to check the AIM homeless tile. And then two, you need to compare it to this report right here. How many of you in here have access to the enterprise reports inside of PowerSchool? If not, you need to go back right now and go ahead and send that email and say, Stacy said, put it in there. There is a report called the ALSDE Enrolled Homeless Student Report. You see that date, 3/27/23? It means that's how long it's been out there. So if you don't have it yet, they've been holding you back for a year. Because we built a beautiful report that will give you at a district view or a school view, depending on where you're logged in at. who your potential kids are, who your verified kids are, what the residency status is, and you get it all kind of in a spreadsheet view at the bottom so that you can then filter to go, okay, so all of these kids are verified. I verified all of them are right, but hey, these 3 kids still are not showing a name. Then I'm going to filter for the ones who are verified, and I'm going to first check that valid school year and make sure they all have the correct valid school year. And if I find my 3 kids that don't have the right school year, I'm going to go into those kids' records, and I know who to fix very quickly without scrolling through one kid at a time. So you want to start running this now to make sure that you are seeing a match over in AIM of what you have here. Because you can clear up any discrepancy now instead of waiting to June when everybody's wanting everything done. Because I'm sure all of you are wearing multiple hats in here, aren't you? When people say stay in your lane, you're like, Stacy, you realize my lane's 10 lanes long, right? Because I'm the federal programs and the homeless and the testing and the this. So anything that we can go ahead and have you check now, we want you to be doing that. So any questions for me before it follows up for where the data goes to IS after you've entered it inside of PowerSchool? Yes.
Go back to that QR code.
I sure can. Whoop. There we go.